Picture this scenario because I guarantee almost everyone watching has felt it before. Imagine you are 32 years old, you have a decent job, decent money, and yet every month when you look at your finances, there is this gnawing feeling that something is broken. You are making more than your parents made at your age. You have technology that seemed like science fiction 15 years ago. You can call someone on the other side of the planet for free, yet you feel absolutely trapped. Your bank account shows $5,000. Your credit card debt is $12,000. Your student loans are $65,000. You lie awake doing the math in your head. If you lost your job, you have maybe 3 weeks of expenses covered. Your friends who made slightly different choices have completely different lives. They talk about investment portfolios. They mention sabbaticals without worrying about money. One actually quit their job to start a business, and it worked. You are sitting there thinking, what decision did I make differently that led to this exact place? This feeling of being trapped despite decent money is not bad luck. This is not because you are bad with money. This is a systematic pattern that happens to millions of people at almost exactly the same financial stage. And here is what keeps me up at night. Most financial advice completely ignores the actual psychology of how people move through their financial lives. You get told to track spending and make a budget. You get told to invest in index funds for 30 years. You get told to stay the course. But the truth is completely different. There are 3 specific net worth milestones that change everything about how you experience money and your relationship with your financial future. The transition through each milestone does not feel gradual. It feels like stepping across a threshold where suddenly the rules of the game change entirely. Most financial gurus will tell you that building wealth is linear. Save more each month, invest consistently, wait 30 years, compound interest handles everything. That is generic advice that sounds nice in spreadsheets, but not how real people actually experience their financial lives. The truth is different. My name is Mark, and I spend too much time thinking about the actual inflection points where people's financial lives fundamentally transform. Not slow, steady accumulation, but the actual moments where the variables shift so dramatically that everything after is categorically different from everything before. I have looked at thousands of financial case studies and net worth breakdowns, and there is a clear pattern. There are 3 specific net worth thresholds. Once you cross them, your financial reality changes so substantially that you cannot go back to thinking about money the way you did before. Most people do not even know these milestones exist. They are not taught in school. They do not show up in standard financial advice, but crossing them is what separates people who feel financially anxious their entire lives from people who eventually feel they have breathing room. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up because I am going to walk you through exactly what these 3 milestones are, what changes when you cross them, and the specific math that determines whether you can reach them at all. The concept I am going to introduce has a name among researchers studying financial psychology. It is called the threshold effect. It has been operating in your life probably since you started earning money, but you did not have a framework to understand it. Here is the thing that keeps me up at night. The distance between the first and second milestones is where almost everyone gets stuck. This is the zone where you earn enough money that you should theoretically be building wealth, but something invisible is preventing you from crossing into the next phase. The data on this is dark. According to the Federal Reserve, 78% of Americans making between $50,000 and $100,000 per year report feeling financially stressed. 78%. These are not people in poverty. These are middle-class people earning solid incomes feeling trapped. This feeling does not correlate strongly with actual income level. It correlates with whether you have crossed that second milestone. The moment you cross it, everything changes. The anxiety does not disappear overnight, but it transforms into something different. Instead of anxiety about survival, it becomes anxiety about optimization. Let me give you concrete data, because the numbers are absolutely critical. The first milestone is what I call the escape velocity point. This is a net worth of somewhere between $25,000 and $50,000. The exact number depends on your income and location, but the principle is identical. This is the threshold where you have crossed from negative or near zero net worth into genuine positive territory, and more importantly, where you have enough cushion that one emergency does not completely derail your life. Let us use a concrete example. You are making $55,000 per year. After taxes and living expenses, you are saving about $800 monthly if you are careful. After 1 year, your net worth is around $10,000, assuming you started from zero. You are no longer technically insolvent, but still fragile. One car repair or medical bill, and you are back to zero. After 3 years of consistent saving, your net worth is around $30,000. Things start feeling different. You have a real emergency fund. You have breathing room. You do not wake in a cold sweat checking your balance. After 5 years, your net worth is around $48,000. You have crossed the first threshold. You have escape velocity. You have built something with momentum. If you lost your job tomorrow, you could actually survive. You could buy time to figure out next steps. You could take lower paying work to reduce stress. You could leave a toxic workplace. This is what escape velocity means. Your net worth has grown large enough that you are no longer forced to make every financial decision based purely on survival. The second milestone is what researchers in behavioral economics call the compounding crossover point. This is typically a net worth between $250,000 and $500,000. This is where your investments start generating enough income that investment returns exceed what you earn through active income. Let me walk through this with a specific example because this is where the math becomes absolutely ridiculous. Person A reaches $250,000 net worth at age 38. Their portfolio is invested in a standard index fund with expected long-term returns of approximately 7% per year. 7% of $250,000 is $17,500 in investment returns in year one. If person A earns $70,000 annually from their job, they earn roughly $200 daily in active income. But their investments generate approximately $48 daily in passive income. They are approaching parity. After 5 years of continuing to save and invest, person A is now at $400,000. At 7% returns, that is $28,000 annually from investments alone. Person A is now generating nearly 40% of their previous income just from their net worth. After 10 years, assuming they continued to save and markets performed reasonably, they might have $600,000 in net worth. $42,000 annually in investment income. They have crossed the actual compounding crossover point. This is the threshold where investments generate more income than a part-time job. Person A no longer has to work. They could stop tomorrow, and their net worth would generate enough income to maintain their lifestyle indefinitely. This is not theoretical. This is mathematical reality. Compare this to person B, who never focused on building net worth. Person B makes the same $70,000 annually, but person B has only $30,000 in net worth at age 38. Person B has approximately $0 in annual investment income. Person B is still entirely dependent on active income. Person B cannot stop working. Person B is still in the zone where every dollar of spending comes from active income. The difference between these people is not that person A is smarter. The difference is that person A crossed a specific threshold, and once you cross it, the mathematics of your financial life changes entirely. This is why reaching that second milestone is critical. It is not because $500,000 makes you rich. It is because once your investments generate meaningful income, work becomes optional. Not necessarily something you stop doing, but something you choose to do. That is a completely different psychological state than being forced to work. The third milestone is what I call the perpetual wealth point. This is typically a net worth between $1.5 million and $3 million depending on your lifestyle. This is where investment income substantially exceeds job income. If person A reaches $2 million in net worth by age 50, they are generating $140,000 annually in investment income. They make $70,000 from their job and $140,000 from investments. They are in a completely different universe financially. If they lost their job, nothing would change about their lifestyle. If they wanted to give half their income to charity, they could without affecting their standard of living because their lifestyle is now funded primarily by wealth, not work. The implications are not just financial, but existential. At the first threshold, you got escape velocity and stop being terrified of random events. At the second threshold, work became optional. At the third threshold, your life becomes unmoored from the pressure to earn high income. Here is where psychology becomes crucial. When you are operating below the first milestone in that zone of financial fragility, your brain operates in a different mode than when you have crossed it. Neuroscientists call this scarcity mode. When your brain perceives insufficient resources, a specific neural pathway activates. Your amygdala, the ancient part handling fear and survival, exerts more control. Your prefrontal cortex, the part handling long-term planning, gets less blood flow. Your cognitive capacity narrows. You become hyper-aware of threats. You make risk-averse decisions. You hold on to bad jobs because you cannot afford risk. You do not invest because it feels scary without a buffer. You make scarcity tax errors. You pay more for things because you cannot buy in bulk. You stay in worse jobs because changing feels risky. You do not invest because you need every dollar. These are not character flaws. These are neurological responses to genuine scarcity. The moment you cross into that first milestone and have a real cushion, something shifts. Not everything, but something critical. Your brain no longer perceives immediate threat. You can think in longer time horizons. You can take calculated risks. You make decisions based on the future, not just the present. The research is stark. People who cross the first milestone make objectively better financial decisions, even controlling for income. They are more likely to invest, leave bad situations, make long-term plans. It is not that they are smarter. It is that their brain is no longer in full survival mode. Let us follow two people with slightly different choices. Person A starts at age 25 making $45,000 per year. Person A lives carefully and saves 12% of their gross income, $5,400 annually. Person B makes the same $45,000 but lives in a nicer apartment, has a car payment, dines out frequently, and saves roughly 2%. $900 yearly. Over 5 years, person A accumulates roughly $27,000 in net worth. Person A is approaching the first threshold. Person B has only $5,000. Person A starts feeling the shift. Person A can turn down bad job offers because they could survive a transition. Person B cannot. Person A invests in skill development. Person B cannot. The divergence is subtle initially, but compounds. By year 10, person A is probably at $110,000 and has changed jobs twice to higher paying roles. Person B is at $25,000 and stayed in the same job because leaving felt risky. By year 20, person A is approaching $500,000 and has crossed the compounding crossover point. Person A's net worth generates meaningful income. Person A can stop working or take lower stress work. Person B is at $150,000 and entirely dependent on active income. The gap that started as $900 versus $5,400 yearly has become a gap where one person has financial autonomy and the other does not. Being in survival mode costs money. It costs money in worse interest rates because of lower credit scores. It costs money in paying retail prices because you cannot bulk buy. It costs money in staying in bad situations longer. It costs money in not taking advantage of investment opportunities. Being in that first fragile zone is expensive. The moment you cross out of it, costs disappear, but there is a second-order effect that is even more important. The moment you have breathing room, your earning trajectory changes. You make better career decisions. You invest in yourself more strategically. You pursue opportunities you would not when in survival mode. You might think all of this is determined by initial income, and if you do not start with high income, you are stuck forever. That is not true. Starting with higher income makes this easier. Someone making $100,000 per year hits the first milestone faster than someone making $45,000. But the mathematics still work for lower income people, it just takes longer. If you are making $35,000 with dependents in an expensive city, saving 12% might not be realistic. Maybe your realistic number is 5%. It takes longer, but the threshold still exists. The math still works. The threshold might take you until 30 instead of 25, but you can still cross it. The variable that changes is time, not possibility. What matters is the direction you are pointed. Are you pointed toward these thresholds or away from them? Every financial decision moves you either closer to crossing a milestone or further away. Saving $500 this month instead of spending it moves you toward the first milestone. Investing, rather than holding cash, moves you toward the compounding crossover point. Increasing your income through side projects moves you toward financial autonomy. According to Federal Reserve research, the average American household has a net worth of around $172,000. This sounds high until you realize it is heavily skewed by wealthy outliers. The median net worth for someone between 25 and 34 is approximately $30,000. For someone between 35 and 44, it is approximately $103,000. Research shows a clear inflection point right around that second age group. By the time people hit their early 40s, if they have deliberately built net worth for roughly 15 to 20 years, many have crossed into the zone where things feel different. But here is the dark part. Approximately 30% of American households have negative or near zero net worth. These are people in survival mode with no escape velocity. Northwestern University research found that people in the bottom income quintile who saved just 8% of income still reached net worth milestones and crossed into meaningfully different financial territory. The probability was lower, the timeline was longer, but it was absolutely possible. The researchers found something that should terrify every parent. For every 10 years of age, you should ideally have approximately your annual income in net worth. A 35-year-old making $60,000 should have about $350,000 in net worth. A 45-year-old should have roughly $600,000. A 55-year-old should approach $1.2 million. Most people run significantly behind these benchmarks. So what is the actual solution here? First, you need to know where you are right now. Not the budget you think you have or the savings rate you think, but the actual number. Pull up your net worth. Add all assets, subtract all debts. This is your actual starting point. If negative, you are in debt. Between 0 and 50,000, you are in escape velocity territory. Between 50,000 and 300,000, you are progressing toward the compounding crossover point. Above that, you have crossed it. Second, calculate your actual savings rate. Not the percentage you think you save, but the actual percentage of after-tax income you save and invest. If you make $55,000 after taxes and save $7,000 yearly, your savings rate is roughly 13%. This number determines your velocity toward the milestones. A 13% rate moving from 0 to 50,000 takes about 6 years. 5% takes about 15 years. Time matters, but direction matters more. Third, run the math on when you hit the second milestone. If you are at $150,000 in net worth, saving $8,000 yearly, getting 7% investment returns, when do you cross into the zone where investments generate meaningful income? At $150,000 with 7% returns, you are getting roughly $10,500 per year in investment income. You are adding $8,000 in savings. By $300,000, your investment income is roughly $21,000. If you make $70,000 from your job, you are 25% of the way to work being optional. In 5 more years at similar rates, you might be at $500,000, 47% of the way. In another 5 years, you hit that threshold where portfolio income exceeds job income. The timeline depends entirely on your current net worth, savings rate, and investment returns. But the math is deterministic. Here is what I want to leave you with, a reframe I think about constantly. When you see a price tag, that tag does not represent the cost of the item. It represents the opportunity cost. You see a $40 coffee maker and think you need to save the $40. But you should think, what will this $40 be worth in 20 years if I invested it? At 7% annual returns, $40 becomes $138 in 20 years. But if you are below the first milestone in that zone of financial fragility, that 40 might be the difference between a 1-week and 10-day emergency fund. The reframe is not that you should never spend. The reframe is understanding the real cost of what you are buying. Understanding whether you are buying for right now or buying away from your future. Every dollar you spend below the first milestone is a dollar delaying your escape from financial fragility. Every dollar you save is a dollar accelerating you toward a completely different way of existing. A way where financial anxiety is not your constant baseline. A way where one bill does not trigger months of stress. A way where work is something you choose instead of something you are forced to do. This is not about deprivation or denying yourself joy. This is about understanding there is actually a path out of financial fragility if you are willing to be intentional about where you are pointed. The path is knowable. The thresholds are real. The math works. The difference between people who cross these thresholds and people who do not is not luck. It is not that some people are naturally better with money. The difference is that some people understand these thresholds exist and orient their decisions toward crossing them. Some understand that the first threshold is worth pursuing, because once you cross it, your entire psychology shifts. Some understand that the second threshold is worth the effort, because once you cross, work becomes optional. Some understand that the third threshold is worth the discipline, because once you cross it, you have transcended the financial anxiety that controls most lives. If this video landed differently for you, if your understanding of your own financial journey shifted at all, smash that like button because the algorithm is watching. And if this resonates, it helps me create more content. Subscribe to this channel because we do deep dives into money psychology, wealth building, behavioral economics, and hidden patterns that keep people stuck every week. Leave a comment below and tell me which of these 3 thresholds resonates most with you. Are you working toward that first escape velocity point? Are you closer to that compounding crossover where work becomes optional? Or are you thinking about what genuine financial autonomy would feel like? The conversation in the comments is where real thinking happens. People challenge me. People share their own experiences. People figure things out together. I read every comment, and I will see you in the next one.